Welcome, everyone. I am your host, Lex Black. You're tuning into my show, Midnight Arcade. This is episode 31. This is season 4. I'm shocked that I'm still here. I'm not even gonna lie to you, man. I'm not, pleasantries aside, introductions aside, I'm gonna get right into it, man. We have an incredible guest on the show today. I'm so thankful that this gentleman took time out of his busy schedule to come on with me. Who you be, bro? Introduce yourself.
Well, I wear many different hats nowadays, but I am the creator of ARISEN, mainly the artist, and I'm also the director of a video game now. It's evolved into that kind of project. So
Crazy.
yeah, but yeah, I'm Ron. Also go by Ron. And as you know, I've been developing ARISEN for quite a long time. I would say maybe over a decade so far. And I'm sure you've been following me for a while, so you know the journey.
Mm-hmm.
The journey that's been. It's been quite a journey. So yeah, no, I'm really glad to be here to inform you on, whatever you want to talk about, whether it be ARISEN, my creative process, whatever you want to know.
Listen, we're going to talk about all that. And I'm glad you brought that up. So the first thing, I like to always know the why for creatives, because obviously I'm a creative myself and there's always a why. Sometimes there's multiple whys. But what is the seminal proverbial why for you? Like what work of art, anime, manga, or video game, or anything of the sort from life that made you say to yourself, man, I just want to do this? And then to that extent, what has inspired the work of the for the work and the world of ARISEN? I'm sorry, ARISEN. I'm sorry.
You're good. I've heard it all.
I'm going off for like 4 hours of sleep. My kids can't be up, so forgive me. But what is your why, bro? Tell us your why, man.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean, I think like every artist, it started being in my bedroom, seeing an anime on the TV. I was like, yeah, that's really cool. I want to do that.
Yeah.
But, over the years, if I were to say, did ARISEN look like it did before, how it is now, it looks totally different as far as like the why and, how that shaped into what it is now.
Yes.
Because starting off, it was more about, and it still is, obviously, it's still about the creativity, wanting to explore areas of that facet that hasn't been explored in today's world.
Yes.
But as far as the why, for me, it's more because, I guess, how can I put this? It's more because of the things I see in the industry, in the world, as far as what I feel like needs to be spoken and talked about that isn't being talked about. So I'm using ARISEN as that tool to be utilized as far as not really pushing like for change, but just putting topics out there for people to see that isn't being, looked into for various reasons.
Absolutely. And sometimes, and not to cut you off so much, but like sometimes giving people particular subject matter, because art imitates life and life imitates art. So giving people particular subject matter that kind of parallels the life experience, in a way that's, I guess, more digestible or more acceptable for them to absorb is like, that's kind of one of the other cool goals as creators in this field, you know what I mean? So like, which leads me to my next question, right? Because when I was reading some of the stuff from the manga, right, there's something that stuck out to me. It was a line that you wrote, and it said, who would want to be in a world where fragmented beliefs decide survival? And for me, like, this question hits home so much, right? Because I don't know if you know or not, but I wrote 2 books, cyberpunk fantasy books called Neon District. It's part of a 3-book series. And in that, obviously cyberpunk, the old adage is high tech, low life. And then on top of that, it's dystopian and, government corruption, corporations, so on and so forth. You know the whole spiel, right? So when I read the books back, I was like, it sounds like kind of like, aside from the fantastical elements, it sounds like a world that we live in right now. So then I circled back to what you were saying with this quote, Who would want to be in a world where fragmented beliefs decide survival? And in my brain, I'm like, the first thing that I go to when that really pivotal question is asked from your work, I go to the halls of Congress. And I'm not going to get super political here. So, okay. I go to the halls of Congress. I go to the presidency. I go to governance as a whole. And, it just, you look at how these people with these fragmented beliefs try to impose their whatever it is for whatever reason, mostly money, onto the society at large. And then it's just like, it just creates this ripple effect from the top down. And so that's why when I saw that quote in your work, I was like, man, that is such an important question. And this is why, leading back to the previous point that you said about, like, giving people the perspective of real life stuff just through fantastical elements basically is so important. Sorry to cut you off, but I just wanted to bring that because I felt that was a really poignant question to be asked.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad that you hammer that in, because a lot of I say this like so many times to people, like, Arisen isn't what people think it is. Like, I'm presenting the world in a way to where, like, pretty much how how Attack on Titan, like, people thought it was about these giants pretty much being in this world, and like humans get giants, and then chapters later you find out there's more to the story that hasn't been. Yeah, it's like that. Where, like, I'm presenting this world, it looks like it's this incredible world. It's in the future, technology is at its all-time high. Mm-hmm. You can do whatever you want pretty much, but there's, in the synopsis I put at the end of it, for better and worse. So it's like, you're seeing the better parts of it, where it's the stuff that people talk about, like being, having superpowers, or like having forms of technology that allow you to do certain things, or just having the freedoms to do whatever you want, right?
Right.
But then there's that other part of it that will be explored in the story later on, the worst part, that people haven't seen yet. And I'm really excited to get to that, because that's like where it'll cap off to where, this is what it's about. And then, like,
right.
Just,
That's the beauty of storytelling. There's so many branches, and there's so many branches connected to so many roots underground that create these seemingly offshoots of stories that don't seem like they're connected, but they actually are in the long run if you just pay attention to the breadcrumbs that are dropped. I love that kind of stuff. I'm so excited. I started reading the material, and I'm like, oh man, like, this is, I can see how, like, condensed but like layered the story is gonna get, And speaking of which, that kind of ties into the visual aspect that I noticed that stood out for me. For me now, I dabble sometimes here and there into, illustration, so on and so forth. But I've actually been leaning more towards like 3D rendering and stuff like that as of late, 3D modeling and stuff, which is another reason why your work piqued my interest, right? But we'll get to that in a second. But your art style, right? To me, how do I describe it? It's like, again, I'm probably not going to be using the correct art terms or whatever have you, but to me, it's like dense watercoloring paired with denser, intricate details splashed with a healthy amount of chaos and shapelessness. Like, that's the first impression those are the first like words that come to mind with it, because I was on the website and I was looking at some of the mecha and how those descriptions come into play, but then I see some of the intricate designs and the smaller shapes into the build of the mecha, and then seeing like the vivid colors of some of the characters, and I'm like, man, this is amazing. I'm going to be honest with you, it kind of reminds me of and this is a huge, because this guy, I love this guy, it kind of reminds me of Nicholas Draper Ivy in a sense.
Yo. That's so. I've heard that so many times, and I take it as a compliment.
It's real.
I actually
it's real. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And side note, a lot of people don't know this, but the cover of my first book was drawn by him. This is before he.
Really?
Yes. If you look it up, Neon District Alpha, you'll see the artwork, and he drew that cover for me, which was awesome. Like the way how he just turned it over and like,
dang,
the dude's amazing. The dude's amazing. But it's because of his work that I enjoy so much. When I saw yours, I was like, okay, this guy is nice. Like I need to follow this dude, you know. And then like then you have ARISEN, and then you're working on the video game. Oh, you're literally acting out all of these dreams that I have, because a buddy of mine and I, we've gotten together. We're trying to build some stories and stuff like that. And one of the things that we want to do is design video games. But I'm not going to focus so much on my stuff. I want to know well, first and foremost, I'm sorry. I'm just excited. Okay. What actually inspired you to build, like, what, I know we kind of touched on it, but the ARISEN universe, like, what is it to you? I'm curious to know.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to kind of do this without spoiling.
Yes, of course. So, of course. Mild spoiler alert, people.
So I guess ARISEN visually as a whole, so I guess like a fun fact about me, aside from being like an artist, I originally wanted to study architecture. So in high school, which is probably why you see a lot of like that, like construction lines and stuff like that.
Yes.
Because in high school I studied architecture, and I was actually going to major in it in college. But obviously, life has its way.
Of course.
So
of course.
But I didn't, that didn't go to loss. Like I ended up using those skills for building the world of ARISEN, and a lot of the skill set that I got from that, I applied it to the I guess megascapes that you see with the drawings that I do with the backgrounds.
Yes.
And also, since you touched on 3D art, I guess say 3D arts, right? I recently got my certificate in 3D arts, and I did some 3D modeling, which is when that led to me making video games. I was like, why not? So,
yeah, of course.
Yeah, and the stuff that I learned there, I applied it to my illustration aspect, as far as when you bevel a object in 3D, it makes the line, the form more defined. And I was like, why can't I just do that 2D? And it would save me time. 2D illustrators, and I started off doing this, like you do the line work first, and then you color, do the base flat colors and all that other stuff.
Yes.
But I was like, why don't I just try something different? And now I start with doing, some experimentation with positive and negative space. And once I capture the figure, then that's when I go into details of drawing, the eyes, all that stuff, and defining the form more. So it's like I'm doing sculpting in 2D. I guess the best way I can describe it is sculpting in a 2D space, but not really, applying like those 3D elements of, I guess, lighting like up front. It's more of like me looking at positive and negative space, like positive being like the the actual figure that you're drawing, and the negative space is everything else, so the background.
Yeah.
So, and then like when I learned about the 3D art stuff, I pretty much just applied that to illustration. So, and I think like I've seen other artists do that too. Like I also seen Nicholas experiment with that once though, like for just a random sketch he did. He was experimenting with defining the form first, and just kind of like experimenting. And I remember when I saw that, I was like, yeah, that's really cool, but I just didn't know how he actually did it. But like now, I guess like studying, I guess, modeling a bunch of like, the things that I modeled, that class that I did, whether it be, the landscapes. And I also ended up modeling, my character, Rikio.
Yep.
After doing that, I was like, let me apply some of this stuff in 2D. And that's how you have, what you see there. Although that intricate stuff is just like, I guess for lack of a better term, that's like just the sketch lines, but I just make it look finished. If that makes sense.
Yes. Speaking of Rikio, going back to the source material, right? I was reading Rikio's story at the beginning of it, and I wasn't able to, because I was doing it during work. So, but like, I'm so curious. I didn't even want to spoil it for myself. I kind of wanted you to tell me, like, what is his story? Because damn, like I saw I ain't even gonna hold you. I saw the inspiration for the Obito mask, right? and but then off rip, I'm intrigued because Naruto is like god body anime manga for me.
Yeah.
That's why, and I saw that, I was like, okay, okay. And then coupled with your art style that I already dig, I'm like, all right, this dude is really onto something. So then I'm reading, excuse me, a little bit of the story, and I'm like, damn, adverse circumstances don't even begin to describe like what your art is portraying, like the kind of situation that he's in and how he's introduced. So I'm like, so what was the inspiration behind Rikyo, and if you can divulge a little bit of his abilities per se for the fans, and
I got you. So Rikyo, I guess to answer the question about his backstory without spoiling too much, it's like the way I designed the story. It's like, I guess you say, if you know like Yoshiki from Final Fantasy, like he likes to kind of like jump around because he can't really talk about everything until it actually releases. Yeah. So I'll try to answer it the best I can.
Gotcha.
pretty much. Rikyo, he is pretty much, he's actually one of the protagonists of, the story. He's one of the main ones in the F-Zero. She's the second one. But Rikyo, he's the character who, I guess you could say, is in that world of Arisen, and he knows more than the characters around him than they do about the world. So it's like he's placed in the position of knowing more than other characters and about which route to take. He is trying to understand which way is best, as far as, when he's introduced, he's actually captured, right? And this is before chapter 1 that I released. So this is the stories of Rikyo that I think that you're talking about, is when he's introduced and he's captured, and he's faced with the Owl, which I present him as an antagonist, but he's actually going to be a character who helps Rikyo later on. So I present Rikyo and the Owl this like, state of, the Owl seems like he's torturing Rikyo, but it's more of like the Owl is helping Rikyo. How do I do this without spoiling? He's helping Rikyo, like, I guess you say, without like spoiling, like jog his memory about who he is. So it's like, when you enter the world of Arisen, you don't want to say you forget who you are, but it's just like dormant. And then pretty much the Owl, to give you a little bit about him, he's the owner of this medical facility called yall, and he is tasked with pretty much getting remnants, you could say, because Rikyo is a remnant, someone who pretty much has a mutagen inside of him, like a DNA splicing that isn't normal. And just not Rikyo, but anybody. Pretty much, he's tasked with gathering remnants and pretty much doing experiments on them to figure out, what's going on. Obviously, there's more to it, but that's like the basics.
Of course, there's more to it.
So, like, the Owl, pretty much, he has his own goals for doing it. It's not just for experimenting. There's obviously some other underlying thing with him. But Rikyo, once he gets back to, remembering why he went into that world, then after that Stories of Rikyo chapter, then that's when he starts to actually escape from that facility to carry out what he was tasked to do. And the Owl, he isn't an antagonist, but I'm gonna actually make him look like he is. But he's like I can say he's an anti-hero for like right now. But
makes perfect.
And I guess as far as Rikyo's abilities, so Rikyo, in layman's terms, he has fire abilities, but it's more connected to not just his ability to control heat, or like the heat level of his body to create flames, but it's more of explosive power, I guess comparable to Bakugo from My Hero, where his is just explosions, not necessarily like full on flames.
Yes.
Rikio creates explosions, but his I guess you say his will to control those flames can actually turn those explosions into manifestations of what he thinks of. So it's like, if I guess coupled with which I haven't explored yet because I haven't gotten that part of the story, but if you notice his design, he has these black wraps that are on his arms. And also in the beginning of the story, he has it on his, part of his face. And to give you a little background about that, remnants are required to wear those kinds of, I guess, restraints, because if they don't have that, they'll, in layman's terms, turn into these, monstrosity of creatures. So you like pretty much like think about Venom.
Yes.
Like they'll turn into stuff like that, like crazy stuff. So it controls that. But in Rikio's case, he finds these wraps, which is given to him by a character specifically, that helps him control the power that he has. So those wraps turn into flames, but also turn into, he could turn them into like swords or whatever, anything that he thinks of. But it depends on how well he's able to obviously control that. So it's not broken to where he can just do whatever he wants. He has to master it.
Right.
So Rikio, he's a combination of, I guess you say fire, and then also his equipment that he has in the world.
Okay.
Just to like, with the bare basics of what it is.
Right. Okay. I'm just see. This is. I'm always, for me, when I'm reading stories or diving into manga or watching anime, I always love to. I don't like seeing what is given to me on the surface, or from what the creator is giving to me on the surface through the show or through the initial work, the premiere work, isn't enough for me. I always need like an additional wiki or like sort of extra site to kind of like dive into the whys, who's, what's, where's, and how's of said character, because I'm just a weirdo like that, I guess. I don't know. I really love that stuff, like there's a lot of audiobooks that I read and I'm like, damn, I wish they had wikis for it, because like I want to see what the author thought this character looks like, or how they behave, or how this power actually manifests. I want to see what they see, so like that's why I wanted to ask you and get it from the horse's mouth directly, because I'm gonna see it, of course, as the chapters come out, but I still just wanted a sneak peek.
I mean, I'll actually be releasing, I guess I'll add this, I'll be releasing an art book that will actually have all the information in it. Like it'll have all the artwork, like the stuff that I do about the planning, and then it'll also have like information about like each character and I'm also making a website right now that will also have, files of the characters and powers and all that. So it'll have, whatever you want.
Someone like me, that sounds amazing, because then I could kind of like just dive in and like get a preview of everything and just understand like just more. It gives me more to look forward to when more stuff comes out. I love stuff like that. I really nerd out with stuff. I really do. I can't help myself. So like I'm amped up for that, man. I'm amped up. Okay, now speaking of massive worlds and the like, I noticed that you even in your stylings, you have this affinity for works of Square Enix. and as someone who loves Square Enix so much, solely because of one of the greatest games ever in life, Final Fantasy VII, it's another reason why I gravitate to your work. So for me, like, now I guess we're gonna jump into, well, let's talk about Final Fantasies for a little bit. Which one is your favorite? I need to know.
Oh boy.
I need to know.
So this is probably like the 10th time I've been asked this. I want to say, for me, it would be Final Fantasy VI, believe it or not.
Ooh.
Believe it or not. It's just because of the way the character development is in the story, as far as, with Kefka and how his...
Kefka, that bastard, yeah.
he's that character that, you know, obviously he's the antagonist, but he's more of like a fun antagonist. You know
Yeah,
he's just there to just cause trouble. But and I
yeah,
just like that because like you know how like some villains have, you know, that backstory of like, oh, they had a tragic, you know, life and that, you know, yeah, because for me it was just like a breath of fresh air where it's like, oh, he's just bad, you know, so you just don't
yeah,
like him. So it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
so it's like
yeah.
when I saw that and also the other characters, right? How they and also I guess that's how I got inspired with like how I wanted to lay out my cast. Where like I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but Final Fantasy VI is has the largest like main cast as far as you know. I think it has like total
Yes.
of yeah. So like and I was just like really, I thought that was really cool how they fit all that into one game. Like because you know how Final Fantasy VII had 3 discs, but like they had like you know a really small main cast, but
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VI, it was like they fit the story, all these characters, and then also like the world of ruin at the end of the game, like where like the entire world it
Yeah.
was just remade into this
Yeah.
like this ruined state. Like that's one of my I guess if you're hearing from me, that's one of my inspirations for like Arisen. It's like how Final Fantasy VI was crafted. It's like I was like I really take inspiration from that and how they told the story with that. So for me, it'd be Final Fantasy VI.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's not a, that's a good choice, man. Because I for me, as I've stated before, one of the seminal bodies of work that really inspired Neon District for me was Final Fantasy VII. And it might not have manifested in as many ways as I anticipated, but it was still a work for me that really set like a groundwork, like a framework to like world build for the story. In addition to some other works and stuff like that. But anytime I speak with people who are into this stuff, I always ask them like, which Final Fantasy, but just because, you know. But for me, seven is my top. And remake, I was like the happiest guy on planet Earth when remake came out, and I can't wait for part 2 to come out. And the fact that they like rearranged the storylines now, so spoiler alert for anyone who doesn't know, Zack is alive. So that means Ares might be alive because the whispers, the whispers of fate, they all change it. I love how they that and how they changed that up while still keeping true to like the main storyline. That was just amazing for me. But like 7, I rock with 8. 10 was dope. I like 12. I had such high hopes for 13 and 15.
Same. Oh my gosh.
15, the way how they previewed it, it looked like it was going to be epic. And then it turned out to be such a letdown, right? I'm so curious to see how 16 manifests. I'm really, really, really curious. You know, I heard some hoopla about some stuff going on with it as far as like diversity. I'm trying not to be like a firebrand on here, but like, I mean, part of me is like, what do y'all expect? And then the other part of me is like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with trying to include more things, but you know, I just want the game to be good. Overall, when I play these games, I just play them because the stories are so epic, and that's the thing that really drew me into the franchise itself, was just diving into the world. Which, again, looking at stories like yours, like Arisen, I love, because I'm looking at it just from the outside looking in, just seeing the limited material that you debuted, and it's like, this is going to be a massive, vast world. I love those because I love being able to dive in and like ask the what ifs. For certain characters or things that might not have been thought of yet. Like that's one of the things for me with my series with Neon District. I like, one of my goals is for people to create like a subreddit that talks about some of the scientific possibilities, the what ifs, or other pathways, or maybe this is feasible of happening, or maybe not. Like, you know, so I love being able to provide that kind of vast expanse of material for people to kind of dive into it. So this leads me to my next thing. So as we've kind of touched on earlier on in the discussion, you know, you started developing a game based on a story, which is awesome. That's awesome. That is amazing. That is so dope. Seeing someone just going for it, right? What what kind of pushed you to get into the video game space with the ARISEN story as a whole?
Yeah, so that's actually a very I can say that's a very big question because like it's something that I always wanted to do. Like of course like before me diving into it, I had always wanted to dabble in game design and explore that world. I also wanted to do concept artwork for video games at one point, in the industry. But now I'm more or less focused on my own stuff. Like of course, like if that chance comes, maybe I would be open to doing that kind of stuff, kind of work. But for me, when it came to taking that leap, it was because for a short time I was in a group of like friends, pretty much, and we were focused on our own works, and we were helping each other out. And a lot of them were game designers. So watching them learning about like how they made these games, and like they weren't even like they didn't even have a team. They were solo developers, and for the longest time I thought you had to have. I mean, obviously you need to have a studio to do certain things, right?
Yeah.
But watching what they were doing by themselves, I was like, yo, I was like, they're insane. They're still doing it too, but like they are doing incredible work. And I was like, and then like they were telling me, they're like, yeah, you can do this and that. It's just, you just gotta learn how to do it. We can teach you. So like being in that group, they helped me, pretty much learn. And I also take that leap too, going to Full Sail and learning 3D arts about the modeling aspect it helped me so much because I learned. I also like I could say like when I was in undergrad at UD, I also did some 3D arts in like their computer class, but they didn't dive into it to like say like, well, this is what you do for that. But I was able to actually dive into it and learn how to do it, and I was like, yeah, like I can do this. And also, I ended up getting a new laptop from them, so that that helped tremendously. Yeah. So like, I was just like, okay, I have no excuses now. Like, I have, a friend group who's literally, they would say they'll teach me how to do it. Yeah. I got a new laptop. I took classes. Let me just do it.
Blind, yeah. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
There you go. Awesome. That's amazing because like, again, for me, excuse me, just speaking on like personal experience, like one of the reasons why I started getting into like 3D design is because I really, really so badly wanted to put names to faces for my characters in my story. And the more I tinkered in that world, like messing around with Blender and stuff like that, the more I was like, man, I wonder if I could because I wanted to like recreate scenes for parts in the story just to give people a visual, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, if I could just create like a consistent like 3D base character that I can manipulate and put in different situations and create different artwork around it, that would be awesome. And then that thought turned into, man, I wonder if I can animate some stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, just working on the rendering side of taking these models and having them perform specific actions, so on and so forth. And I was like, what would be the best engine to use? Unreal or something else? Or then I was like, and then it started snowballing. So like then I'm going on your page and I'm seeing like Rikio in the world creating, and I'm like, I could do nothing but clap, because like that is the kind of stuff that I want to see, like, and that's the kind of stuff that I want to eventually get into. So seeing that, was just awesome to see, and like it was just so cool. It was so cool because, for me as a kid, wishing, because going back to the Final Fantasy discussion, I remember after playing 7, like I got with a bunch of friends over the course of a few years, and I literally started writing like the beginnings of like a video game based on like what I learned from playing Final Fantasy 7. And I was like, yeah, I want to do it. And I was really young too. I was showing my age here. Damn, that came to the Western Hemisphere in '97. Man, I remember like yesterday. I remember my age, but I remember my cousin Jody, me, and my brother. We had April vacation, and we spent all April vacation playing Final Fantasy VII. It was one of the best experiences of my life. We only stopped to eat and shower, but day and night we were playing that game. And like after that, I was like, I gotta start writing. I don't know. I just picked up the pen and paper and started writing, like, these ideas to create this thing. So then we fast forward a bunch of years, and then we get to see a talented artist like you being able to kind of just take what you're building in a manga and then translating what you're drawing in a manga into a video game. It's just amazing to see. Amazing to see. So again, I gotta tip my hat to you, bro. Like, and it's just I'm thankful that you came on this show, and just really, really, this is just fun. I'm sorry, man. I'm just nerding out.
Yeah, no, you're good, bro. I guess you say, I've been in previous interviews, but none of them have really asked me about when it came to my work in particular. Like, it was more about kind of like it was open ended. What? Tell me about yourself, right? But I appreciate this because you're really nitpicky. Well, not in a bad way.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, you're really diving into and really getting into the meat of Arisen, and also me as an artist. So I really appreciate that as in, you interviewing me.
No doubt.
So
no doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt, man. And I mean, we're actually about to hit the 2-minute mark, and I mean, listen. Have you anything else that you want to talk about? Anything? I mean, if that's the case, we can extend this even further. I have no problem with it at all. Is there any other stuff that you're working on in the future that you might want to give us a preview about? Or
yeah, actually, I do. There is. I can kind of talk about this because I am entering the time frame of when if you've been following the music composition of the game. I can kind of talk a little about that. That's been a journey.
I wanted to ask about that. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, for sure. Is that's been its own journey on its own. It's been so crazy. Thinking cause some of these people that I've recruited are people that pretty much how I look up to Nicholas. You look up to Nicholas Draper. It's I was listening to these people while I was drawing, and then I was just you know what? Let me just try to reach out to them. They would be interested.
What happened?
Yeah. I was wow.
But listen, we're gonna have to talk about that. That's one of the most important questions I wanted to ask you about. Scoring the soundtrack for the video game. That has to be real exciting.
Yeah.
So exciting. Oh my God. Oh. We are back. Listen, guys. I'm thankful to have this gentleman on the show. If you didn't catch it earlier in the episode, this is the homie Ron, aka Ron Like the Wind on IG, and I'm gonna let him tell you where you can find him on the socials at the end of this episode. But we're going to be picking up on our amazing conversation about all of his amazing developments. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about, of course, was scoring the soundtrack and the music to the actual video game that you're developing. Just saying that. Again, it's just truly insane and amazing and dope. And again, I gotta send my congratulations to you. So what is that process? What has that process been like for you, getting the music for this video game?
Oh man, I think this is probably, and it's funny because being the artist of Rizzy, talking about the creative part is the most fun to talk about. But for me, it's the music. Because I'm sure you being a creator, you guys, you can understand when you listen to music, it's you can really dive into whatever you're doing, and it puts you in another. Yeah, so it's scoring the soundtrack for Arisen has been the only word I can do is just crazy, because I guess you say I'm a huge fan of Kiryu Sawano, the Sawano who makes big soundtrack for Attack on Titan and a lot of other anime in the end.
Yes. The music in Attack on Titan is hauntingly bizarre in a way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and Sawano, I guess you say it if I could work with anybody in the industry with like any, not just like with ARISEN, just like anything that I'm making, Sabino would be the person that like I would want to work with, like
Okay.
100%. But as
Right.
far as scoring ARISEN,
Yeah.
I wanted to capture that same sound, but also be original as far as like, not just like look for other Sabinos, and try to like,
Of course.
So it really came down to thinking about the world in itself, and I guess like the soundtrack is actually going to kind of give away what ARISEN really is. Like, we're kind of scared because like I feel like because I'm actually going to be releasing the soundtrack ahead of time to allow people to listen to the music ahead of time.
What's up?
And like,
I'll be buying. I'm in it, man. I'm in that for sure. I'll be buying that.
Because like a lot of the instruments that are used, like, and I'm kind of like afraid to say it now because like I say it's kind of going to give away, but like a lot of the instruments that are used are more, I guess you say, like it has the orchestral feel to it, but also it's industrial and tech and techno and all that, and that can give into its own kind of I guess you say narrative of what the world is really about. But essentially, like scoring ARISEN, I'll start with like the first composer that I recruited for it, which his name is Nexon. He's a Japanese composer living in Tokyo right now, and he was the first person that I listened to while like I was in my college dorm, drawing the ARISEN worlds and stuff. Like I was like, gosh, so I could work with Nexon one day. And fast forward,
full circle. Oh, that's crazy, bro.
Yeah.
Go.
And then Nexon, he's like, his style is EDM, but also I guess you say people, what I've seen like comment on YouTube, they say that he's reminiscent of Sabino. So like if you heard him and the stuff that he's making for ARISEN, you would think Sabino. And I mean, for me, that's fine.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And then the recent one, well, I'm actually like, I guess you say, I'll kind of like spoil this with you. But I actually just finished making the first lyrical track for ARISEN. So it has its own lyrical track now. And that track is insane. Like I've been wanting to tease it so bad, but like, I was like, nah, I gotta wait. Because it's like I'm making different versions of it. Like the composer, he sung it and also made the instrumental for it. And then I'm also going to be in a few weeks in July working with a female vocalist who will be doing a duet on that same song, but also making her own version of that song with the instrumental. Like it's gonna be crazy. I'm doing a lot.
So crazy.
And then there's another composer. His name is Elias, and he's, I guess you say, his style is more of a combination of, to kind of give you an idea, it's like Sawano, but also Yuki Hayashi from My Hero and like the other creations that he does.
Okay.
Yeah, so like if you can think about that, like he's actually making the instrumental for another lyrical song. And then one of my personal friends who I've met through one of the people from my friend group that I was referring to, who introduced me to video game design. He's one of the people, his name is Stephen Dungu. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's the creator of Sort of Symphony. You've heard of that phrase at all?
I faintly remember hearing something about that, but I'm not 1,000% familiar. But it's not totally unfamiliar though.
Yeah. So pretty much Stephen he's a musician. He's also like part of the music team for ARISEN. And I met this person through Stephen. His name is Jalil. And Jalil is also going to be Jalil's going to be rapping over a Sawano-like song. If you've heard of Sawano's song, he has like a rapper. His song is going to have that kind of same feel. So it's like, I guess you say the sound score is going to be very comparable to what you see in like the AAA, title. It's I don't have yours for it, as you can tell.
You going back to something you said earlier about like the overall sound of the score itself, and you said it was something kind of like you said it was orchestral. and techno-ish, and then you said something else. There was a third detail, but when you said it, I was like, yeah, that I can see like it literally, if I don't know if I'm using the correct term, but it kind of like personifies the visuals that you created, so because like some of the music that I heard when I was just watching some of the clips on your IG, I'm like, okay, this makes perfect sense. Like, I get it. Like, it just fits, And then the other thing that it's in my brain, like now that you're explaining it, it's like how you were able to kind of like procure all these artists, and just kind of dope how everything kind of like just like fell in place, and then like just seeing it all kind of unfold before our eyes is quite the privilege, because to be honest, as fans of big video games from big companies, whether it's Square Enix or Rockstar or whatever have you, like rarely do we ever get to see like the kind of goings on of, oh, I'm going to pick this person because I like their style. I like this style because they do a particular thing with their compositions. I like this particular style because of the way how they play the guitar, or how this orchestra, how they compose their music and the vigor with which they play. Like, we don't really get to see that. So the fact that you're kind of like divulging some of those details for us right now was really, really awesome. It's just like upping the quality of this episode, and I'm just I'm just thankful that you're blessing my airwaves on my little channel, to kind of divulge some of those details. Like, I'm so excited. Like, I just have a question that kind of popped in my head. If you feel it to kind of let us know and make us privy to, what platform were you thinking of putting the game on?
So as far as the platform, of course, I don't think I don't know if you like knew or if I told you, but I'm actually making ARISEN on Unreal Engine 5. So off the bat, it's going to be on PC.
Of course.
But I would also like to segue into, at the very least, one of the consoles, either PS5 or Xbox. Obviously, it just depends on how towels fall. Yes. But without a doubt, it's going to be on PC. Because, it's being made on Unreal, and it makes sense for what I'm, the position I'm in right now.
Right.
That just makes sense.
Right. Okay. That's what's up, man. Because it's funny, because for me, like, I am a super MacBook Pro head. I'm a Mac head. Mac. Everything is Mac. But as of late, I've been like really, really thinking about building my own PC for the sole purpose of playing, of gaming. And not to mention, like, now that you're thinking about one of the platforms for ARISEN being on PC, is just all the more reason for me to get my own. And then I actually covered another gentleman, I don't want to butcher his name, Zahid something, but he's an independent game developer. Game called Enenra. I don't know if you heard of it.
I actually know him.
Oh, you do? You know him?
Yeah.
This is the best of the ages right here, man. Shout out to you. Golly.
Good. Yeah, he's actually one of the people who like helped me like get into it. Like the little
out of town.
Yeah. That's funny.
Because for me, I am a huge, massive action buff. I love shinobis. I love cyberpunk. I love high-paced action. I'm big on stories. I love all that stuff. Like, I can't get enough of it. So when I saw Enenra, I was like, when is this coming out? You know what I'm saying? And so and then I guess he's doing a lot of like previews and stuff on Steam. So I'm like, all right, I got to get a PC. And then now ARISEN is going to be coming out on PC. I'm like, all right, I have to, because I want to support people like you guys. Like, it's just because, we see the titans in the industry, and of course they deliver some awesome games. But at the same time, like, now that the great equalizer, the internet has like opened the floodgates, and it's just kind of like snowballed into something else in its own monster. It's really leveled the playing field in a lot of different ways. And of course, with that, the rapid development of technology, so on and so forth, and software, and us being able to get our hands on these video game designing softwares like Unreal Engine, so on and so forth. I'm just, as a creator myself, I am so big on like indie creators. And I've mentioned this on my show a number of times. I am huge on indie creators, like building out and fleshing out their ideas and putting it out for the world to be able to enjoy. So again, this is one of the reasons why I have you on my show, because like I just want to help in any way that I can. And on top of that, I just enjoy the shit that you put out. So like this is just fun for me, and I'm just so excited. I can't wait to get my machine built up so that I can, whenever Arisen comes out, I'm on it, man, for sure. I'm so excited for games like that, because again, for me, I'm big on vast, large, compelling, intricate stories that I can just dive into and lose myself. I could just absolutely lose myself, you know what I'm saying? So that's why, again, Arisen is something that I've really been kind of like drawn to, in addition to the amazing art style that you've implemented with it. And with that being said, I actually have another question that I am making it a habit of asking all of my guests that come on the show. I haven't had many guests. You are actually the second guest that's come on Midnight Arcade in its young life. So again, I want to thank you for coming on. But this is a question that I ask everyone, right? So, I just want to see what you will come up with. So, because honestly, this is a question that I stay wondering about myself. And to be honest, the answer kind of changes all the time. So like, you know, your answer could be one thing right now and it'll probably change, if you come back on the show and we talk about it again. But if you could live in any anime, manga, video game, cinematic universe at all, whatever you could think of, if you could live in any one of the universes, and like I said, anime, manga, cinema, whatever, which one would it be and why?
It's hard, but also easy.
Yeah.
There are particular ones that I would avoid just because I don't want to deal with whatever's going on. Attack on Titan, good. Attack on Titan, like anything that's just like just no. But I guess for me personally, just because like if it's something that I wish the real world could have right now, it would probably be Gundam, just because of obviously
Gundam.
Yeah. So speaking of Gundam, yeah, like I'm a huge Gundam head. Like I have like figures and stuff. So that's one thing about me, which is why I have like some of the mech designs and the reasons Gundam fan. But
yes.
To get back to your question, yeah, it had to be Gundam, just because, aside the fact that there's always war going on, obviously that's the downside of it.
Yeah.
But just being in that world, I just think that's probably best that would fit for me. Like, just as me as a person, I could see myself being in that world. Like,
okay.
Honestly, I think a lot of people would say like, oh, they want powers or like they want some kind of supernatural ability.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I guess you say like, seeing how humans are trying to elevate to that, like the gun, how they say like the new type Gundams,
types, coordinators, innovators, you name it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like I would always think, about going back to like how you said, how art imitates life, right? Like,
yes,
it's like Gundam is probably like one of those creations that like I could see that actually happening, maybe not to that scale, but in some kind of similarity, which is why like I tie that into Arisen, is because like I have that conversation in there, like saying like, oh, this could happen, where like you have these robotic creations, but not in the same way as Gundam. Like I actually take it into a way that I don't think has been explored at all. But I like do that like that's, I can say that's why I think Gundam for me would be like that world, is because like it's the most relatable one to our world.
You know what's funny, Ron? You know what's so funny, bro?
Yeah.
When I had my homies from the podcast called the Abstract Mud Podcast. Shout out to you guys. When I had them on my show a few months back, I asked them the same question, and this they all said we fucks with Attack on Titan at the show, but living there, no. And like that's just like the universal answer, right? anybody who knows anything about anime always says that, right? So I 1000% agree with you, and it's also so funny that because when they asked me like what world I would live in, I mentioned Gundam, but particularly Gundam Seed, and I even went so far as to saying which Gundam would I. And I'm conflating two episodes here, but one of my episodes I focus solely on mecha, and it's called like Mecha Power or something like that, and I talk about Wing, I talk about Seed, I talk about 00, and then I talk about Seed Destiny, and then I talk about Knights of Sidonia and Macross Frontier, and like, and I chose of the worlds which I would live in, it would be Seed, only because the Strike Freedom is god body of a mech, like, just, and Kiriyama is the GOAT to me, you know what I'm saying? And I just love the vivid way in which that world was portrayed. And but then you also brought up an excellent point. It's one of the points that I actually made on my show on that same episode when I talk about my favorite mechas of all time, and the prevalence of war and how it's kind of like manifested in each of these universes, whether it's the Cosmic Era or AD or whatever have you. The war, the impacts that it has on the citizens of the world is still the same, and like, you know, how it affects people, and the political fallout and the implications and the socio-political and economic implications of said war and how it plays out in each of these universes is so amazing, because like we're literally seeing it in every era of our lives. We've had to deal with that in some way, shape, or form. It's been reported to us in some way, shape, or form. So it's always hit home for me, the Gundam universe, because they do such an amazing job of capturing the attrition of war in all of its facets. You know what I'm saying? So like, you know, like you said, despite there being war, the war being one of the biggest premises of the show, just the fact of being able to pilot, you know, these amazing Gundams, whether it's like the Akatsuki Gundam or you know, Wing Zero or, you know, Epion or whatever, like just being able to have the power to like pilot those things, would be crazy. Being a new type, having the crazy spatial awareness, like being able to sense things before it even happens. Yeah, so Gundam is a world that I would love to live in myself. So it's just amazing that you said that, you know. So, but yeah, like I said, I'm gonna make it a habit to ask anybody who comes on the show this question, and if you come back, I'm gonna ask you again just to see if it changed. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, is there anything else that you wanted to kind of tell people about? Or if not, you know, let people know, like I said in the beginning of the show, who you be, where you at, where they can find you, so that they can be put onto your work, be privy to your work, because it's amazing and it deserves to have as many eyes on it as possible. So let people know who you are and where they can find you, bro.
Cool, for sure, yeah. I guess I'll just leave it off like with something like inspirational, you know, for people, because I know like people are always looking for, you know, I guess a second opinion when it comes to like being an independent creative, like how that is with everyday life, you know, right? Because obviously, like, we're talking about all this amazing stuff, but then obviously, you know, there's the other side where it's like, you know, you have your job, other stuff in your life, right?
Yep.
So like, you know, like I guess you say like my day job is at UPS. I do customer service for UPS. And with that's been tremendous, because like it's helped me understand just people in general a lot better when it comes to the world that we live in. Like,
you can find
customer service
anything if you just apply for it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. Like, customer service is one of those things where I think like people should go out of their way to at least like experience it, because like you'll learn so much about just people in general in the world based off interactions, whether good or bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know. And like today though, like, well, quite a few instances, but today I was helping an older gentleman he was a retired veteran and police officer, and he had told me, one day he was in LA and he was going to a gas station, and just any other day, right?
Yep.
And he went in, and he didn't know, like him and his partner, he didn't know that the gas station was being held up at the time. And so he like literally walked in on a armed robbery, and literally like the gunman like turned around, shot him. Luckily he had a vest on.
Yeah.
And like he was literally in the story, he had like the bullet, like what happened. It knocked the wind out of him. But then the gunman shot his partner, his dog, pretty much the retriever dog.
Yeah.
Shot his dog and killed him. And like when he told me that, he like literally he gave me because he was there to get like some prayer papers to hand out to other police officers. And I was just having a conversation with him. He's telling me, I walked in there, and like literally that day just like changed in an instant. It's just, like I guess like I bring that up to say, you can reflect on that on your real life, right? Whether you're tackling whatever you're trying to, go after your goals, like right, like you could be trying to go toward this goal. Luckily, the police officer was equipped with a vest. That could have been it.
Yep.
So but luckily he was, equipped with a vest to protect him, right? And for me, like I took from that, to keep going toward your goals, but just make sure you're equipped so that whether it be good or bad, when certain things, pop up, you're prepared for that.
And you're able to make the adjustments. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. That's been the biggest lesson for me, because so many things happen, whether data mysteriously gets deleted, or like like just like things just break, or the financial stuff just.
Yep.
Everything in the book has happened to me, but thankfully, I've been prepared. And obviously, I thank God for it. So I thank God for keeping me through all those things. But but if it wasn't for him telling me, to be at least prepared for that stuff, I don't want to imagine. Because I've had nights where like I wanted to quit. Like, I won't lie. Like I've had nights where I just want to,
of course,
hang it up and
Of course. And for a lot of us, especially in the independent creators, that's every day. I'm going to be honest with you, since we're being transparent.
Yeah.
I put out Neon District Alpha, which is book 1, 2017. I put out Neon District Exodus, which is book 2, in 2020. It is now 2023, and I am nowhere near putting out book 3, which is the final cap on the trilogy. I've been agonizing every single day, trying to figure out the right creative lead to get the 3rd book going. Every day since I released book 2, I've been agonizing. And that there's some days, like you said, some days I want to be like, man, screw it, I can't. And this is in the midst of me working on the web show, working on music, working on this, working on that. And like, then on top of that, being a father, being a husband, working my job. So it's like all these things right here. And then it's like, sometimes legs get weak. I don't know, man. I don't know if I can do it, but somehow, like we said, God instilled this never say die attitude. And I can't live normally without trying again to do the stuff that I love to do. So to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, for all you independent creators out there, we understand. We are there every day. It's the Venn diagram, where it's like extreme confidence and then soul crushing like self-doubt. And then there's that little space in between that is so hard to get to, but when you get there, so like for me personally, I strive to get to that point and be in that space, to be in that creative space every time out for whatever it is I'm doing, whether it's music, art, book, web show, you name it. Again, that's the hardest place to get to, but it's kind of reminiscent of life, Can't be too high, can't be too low. Achieving balance is the key. So again, a very, very, very poignant point that you brought up. And I just wanted to add my 2 cents to that. You know what I'm saying? But again, Ron, my guy, thank you so much for being on the show. This is one of my favorite episodes. This was great. This was great. This was so great, and I can't wait for everyone to see this, or they're seeing it now. Oh man, I hope you guys enjoyed it, man. One last thing. Tell them where you at, where people can find you, bro. Tell them where you at and where people can find you.
For sure. So I can just say the most active page that I'm at right now is my Instagram. You can follow me at Run Like the Wind, just like, Run Like the Wind from Toy Story, but just
down here for everyone.
Appreciate it, bro.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can find me at my socials at Run Like the Wind. Basically, I would just say my Instagram, just because my other socials I'm not really, I'm not really posting on like TikTok or Twitter. Mm-hmm. Instagram, I'm posting on, and soon I'll release my website, but I'll make an announcement about that. So I guess for right now, Ron Like the Wind at Instagram, that's my main focus right now. And of course, you can find ARISEN on voiceme.com and all the other creatives on there. Some great stories too, if you ever want to check those out. But you can find ARISEN on voiceme.
No doubt. Keeping it simple and plain and straight to the point. I dig it, man. Make sure you check him out on IG, Ron Like the Wind. Follow his work. It's important. It's amazing. It's incredible. It's visually stunning, and he's doing amazing things, man. Inspirational stuff for all you creators out there. Make sure you follow him and check out his work. Make sure you follow me, but I'll put all my stuff at the end of this video. You ain't got to worry about me running my mouth at the end of this, man. So anyway, Ron, thank you so much for jumping on the show. This is episode 31 of my show, Midnight Arcade. This is season 4. I am amped. This is great. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon to be notified for whenever I drop that new heat. You heard? Yes, sir. Ron, I thank you, and we will talk off air, of course, whenever, and keep working, man. And you got me in your corner, man. And thank you again for being on the show, my guy.
Of course, bro. Thanks for having me.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
Peace.
Later.